In 3, 2, 1.
Hi, fellas. Welcome to The Greater Good. My name's Tony.
And I'm Joe.
And this is the channel where we come up with creative ideas, thoughts, and share suggestions and advice to help people improve their lives and join in becoming part of the greater good.
Let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another fantastic episode of The Greater Good, episode number 7 coming at you now. I'm your host, Joe, with my co-host, Tony. Hey, Tony, how are you? If you remember last episode, we kind of tried to arm you with a toolkit that you can kind of pack for your journey towards the greater good in case anything starts to break down, things to pull out. We want to get into kind of analyzing your habits, looking at how your habits are shaping your current life, how they're working for you and against you, and how to kind of maybe redefine those habits. And one of the things that kind of we want to look into is kind of the mindset. So maybe using those things in the toolkit that we talked about at the beginning can be helpful. But we're going to give you some I think some good pointers to help you get started. Because Tony, I think that like for me personally, like I can get really passionate about the greater good. I can understand a clear picture, get a good vision, and even make a vision board to have my bracelet to remind me of what path I'm on. I can have a great understanding of what I want to move away from, what kind of world I want to leave behind, and I can kind of reaffirm my purpose. But even all of that, like no matter how prepared you are, I think that habits can still hack you. And so you're getting to like, all right, yeah, I want to change my life. I'm ready to change my life. But tomorrow, or oh, I can't wake up early today. I stayed up too late again. I messed up. I'm such a failure. Like those kind of minds, like no matter how well you like prepared or how much you know and want to change, I think that habits are hard to kick, especially if you've been working with bad habits for quite a while. So we're gonna kind of try to unravel this a little bit today and see if we can't come up with some tips and tricks to help you redefine those habits and start to actually get some positive action going, some momentum towards that dream, that greater good, right? So, Tony, do you wanna kick us off here?
Yeah, definitely, guys. Everybody, I noticed that too, and that's kind of like why we're discussing this today. Is how can you handle that? How can you not get down on yourself and say, oh crap, I missed the day. Oh crap, no, I'll do this tomorrow. Everything is, I'm just too overwhelmed today or whatever. It's like, it's really important to be realistic at the same time, but have that mindset, that just because you missed a day doesn't mean you're a failure, and one of the episodes we will get into is the difference between failure and defeat. And basically, real quick, failure, you can fail and learn and move on, and you may fail again and you learn and move on. But defeat is when basically you you take the key out of the steering wheel and you throw it out the window. Like then you're defeated, your engine's shut off. So there's a key component where learning how to fail versus being defeated. And again, as we're discussing today, it all comes back to your mindset. It's like along this first part of the journey, we think it is very important. You're going, you want to kind of put the tools that we discussed in there and use them effectively. You also want to become aware of learning. Basically, you're learning your how to drive the car. You're learning the ins and outs of the system. and you're starting to grow. So it's like some people can find that a little bit overwhelming at first, and then it feels a lot easier to like, oh, I can't do this, and it becomes easier to kind of just give up, or once you fail one time, it's like, no, this is too hard for me. But I think it's really important that you start to have the mindset that you understand that it's a process. It's not just like, let me get in, push the gas, and go. There's a whole process to it, and as the first part of your journey, you want to start to become aware of that process and start to learn more about that process. I had this vision of like a gauge, right? And I was like, you know, negative thinking. And it's like almost like if you have that negative thought pattern, every negative thought, it's like you could see the negative gauge going up and up and up. And kind of the only way to combat that gauge is to have a positive thought, So it's like you want to get it to like the balance, and then start to have the positive go more. And it's like it really like I started to try and practice it on a day-to-day basis. It's like, do I want to have my if my negative gauge is high and I'm feeling low, like how can I have that positive gauge go up? And one of the key things I wrote down is like combos, like if you're thinking of like a gamification, combos in a fighting game are like really effective, so it's also combos in the thinking pattern can be effective as well too. So if you have like positive, 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 and you just keep letting your positive thoughts expand, it's like combination, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like, you start to feel like really good about it. So it can have a positive effect, but just in the same time, if you go, negative, 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 negative effect, it's like you're getting punched from the left and right. It's like a combination there. So you really got to pay attention to those thinking patterns and become aware, like, oh, I'm in a negative thinking pattern, let me shift this, and there's always a way to start to shift it. Either you just step out of the negative thinking pattern and go do a reflection, meditation, or deep breathing, some of those tools that we discussed last time, and then think about, oh, I thought about this negative thing, what's the flip side of that? Like, can I make it positive at that? Or can I, start to slow down, and then, as you mentioned, like I think episode 5, Joe, like reduce, eliminate, kind of like work your way out of that negative thinking pattern, and just be aware, like I realize that this is a negative thought pattern. Let me try and catch it when it comes up and stop. And maybe you got like, a 3-hit combo, instead of letting a 3-hit combo turn into like a 9-hit combo. You stop it at a 3-hit combo, and then you hit the defense, and then you supercharge it with like a 5-6-hit combo of the positive side. I may be talking a little strange to some people right now, but I hope you're following the analogy that I'm putting out. Is that making sense to you, Joe, or am I off in left field?
It reminded me of the Mike Tyson's Punch Out, where you kind of have to sit, block, and wait till they kind of, wear themselves out, and then you just go to town on them, right? And then knock them down. So, yeah, I like that.
You're aware of the negative thoughts, like, no, they're not going to come at me. Yep. And then you hit.
Yeah, sometimes you have a glass Joe, and sometimes you have a hippo hammer, or Mike Tyson itself. Yeah, life throws a lot at you. Yeah. I like that a lot. Yeah, it's something that Tony and I have been discussing to kind of help combat these, like, these issues that get in the way is ways to gamify your life, because habits are a lot like a game. In fact, if you play video games or go on the internet, that's pretty much it. You get rewards, dopamine kicks for clicking likes and pushing buttons. And so, how can we use this this loop or this reward system to hack our habits in the ways that we want? And I think that you kind of touched upon something very important there. Is being aware of it early on, rather than kind of letting it stack on you and get you down. Um, I know that is something that only comes with practice, and wanting to change is a good first step. So I think the people here are wanting to change. They're wanting something different, or they're kind of, maybe they're everybody's at different parts in their journey. Maybe they feel like they've been here like me, and then they're down there, and they're trying to get back up again because they know that's worth it. Maybe they've never been up there, but they're tired of being down here. Maybe they're on their way up there and they're kind of struggling or hitting a step. But I think that everybody's coming to look for some advice, and the key is you're taking the first step to be aware that you want change, and then you need to kind of take surveillance of your life. And when you notice those negative thoughts creeping in, it's very important to take to take registry of that, right? To see, what's that narrative? What is the narrative? What are you telling yourself right now? Me personally, that's a big one, man. Like I something fails, or there's a big project that I have to take on, and I just experience overwhelm, and I shut down. I literally shut down and like go take a nap because I can't deal with it, or I'm having a great day, and then I bump into somebody toxic or somebody who's having a bad day, and they just snap at me. Maybe somebody that's close to me that can get in past my defenses and just take the wind out of my sails, and I shut down. And any of the energy or plans that I hope to have for that day is out the window. So being aware of what of when the negative habits, or when the kind of feelings of overwhelm start to stack up early on is important, so that they don't keep piling up until you can't do anything. I think that's a very good thing to do it. So yeah, getting used to your mind frame is going to be very important. Um, so Tony, what do you think? Are there What are some signs maybe that we can be aware of when we're maybe not making the best choices, or like kind of warning signs that maybe we should start paying attention to what's going on, so that we can do that reversal and start to get on top of ourselves? What in your experiences, what have you seen?
Warning signs, as such as like,
Maybe
I'm kind of getting
physical
off.
tension in your body, or kind of thoughts that start to go through your head, like negative experiences that you can start to head off, or do you think they're all kind of unique maybe to the situation?
Yeah, I mean, definitely everyone's gonna have their unique experiences, and there's gonna be a lot of like different ways that negativity approaches you. But I think that there's kind of like a common ground where people get themselves trapped in there, and that's going to be the main point. Is like, how long are you staying in that negative area? And kind of, if you want to like look at it, one of the other thoughts I had is like, basically there's three areas of thinking. If you want to break it down like really simple, like you're either in a negative area of thinking at that time, like at any point in time, and becoming aware of where you're at is really key. And I keep saying awareness, and meditation definitely helps with bringing you to awareness. Mindfulness meditation can really help with that. But just, even if you got to put like some type of, every 10-minute reminder in your phone to like go off and like just for the 30 seconds, like, what state am I in right now? So yeah, there's a
Hmm.
negative state of thinking where you're thinking it's, and it might not just, it might be like surface, like, oh man, it's such a crappy day out here. Oh man, my legs really hurting from lifting all those boxes last night or whatever. Like, just some type of like, even if it's just regular pattern, it's like there's either a negative or a positive to it. So it's a negative, a positive, and then the state you want to stay in, or where you want to look at, is what I call the creative state, where you're actually like thinking like, okay, I know the direction I want to go. I know how to build on. I'm taking steps here. What's the next step? You're in that creative zone where you're not you're like kind of outside of either negative, positive, and you're just in what a lot of experts call like a flow state. You know, that kind of like athletes experience, where you're just there's no real like sense of time or space or anything really. You're just kind of in this flow where your brain's just going and you're like, oh yeah, I can do this, and then I got this creative thing that I'm gonna work upon and build, and you're just really like I don't really know a better way to explain it, but you're kind of outside in either an up or down, and you're just very focused at that moment. And those flow states can last for a minute. Those flow states can last for an hour. Like I think one of the things is like, and don't feel discouraged. Like flow states just come and go. Like you can't really. It's like I know science are now working on uh, manipulating people to get into a flow state, like having an actual like, way for someone to experience a flow state, which I heard today, which is kind of crazy. But most of the time, we're either in that negative or positive, and then all of a sudden, like there's that, again, it's kind of like just like you'll if you become aware of it, you'll catch it when you start to get into a flow state. But again, the whole point that we're talking about right now is cultivating that awareness on your first part of
Yeah.
your path, and then using that awareness to structure and frame your mindset. You know, that's one of the going to be the keys on the journey is really taking that on and building and like working to build a growth mindset, and not necessarily like having the trust and having that confidence in you, like just storing that in the back of your head, like I'm going to get to that greater good. I'm just going to take the next step right now. I'm not going to look at the greater good and say, oh man, I'm so far away from that, like I don't think I'll ever achieve it. You just say, I know I'm going to get there, and right now I'm going to focus on the next step. What's the next step in me on my journey here of getting the greater good? And we prepared you tools that you can, sync on, and ways that you can take this self-reflection test and become more aware of your current point, and ways to build upon that and really kind of, I don't know, take charge and start to grow your life for yourself outside of other influences.
Yeah.
So things you want to add to that, Joe, or you're kind of ringing with that?
No, I think that's amazing insight. I kind of wanted to add to that, just like listening to you, I would add like another state in between. I just drew down. You got negative, which probably should be on the bottom, but negative, and then positive, and then going down through. I would reckon like even like you go from negative through positive to get to the flow state or to get to the creative state. You kind of have to go through that. So it'd be like an evolution. But in the middle, I also think that a lot of people experience what I would call a neutral state, where they're not necessarily having negative thoughts. And going back to what I was talking about with when you take a self-assessment and about growth habits and maintenance habits, and I talked about maintenance habits and looking at internal habits of yourself and external habits that have influenced you. I think that thinking is a lot like that too. We can have negative internal thoughts where we're kind of being self-deprecative and saying I'm not good enough, or I suck, or I'm never going to make it there. And we can also have kind of negative external thoughts where we're kind of blaming the world, like, oh, this is unfair. I hate this person, or I hate that, and we're blaming, right? So I think that we need to be aware of kind of where we're directing our negative thoughts. But I also think that we can also be in a neutral state where we're just kind of coasting. We're just bobbing around looking for distractions, or we're going through avoidance. So we're not necessarily being aggressive or negative to ourselves, but we're not working, we're not positively growing, right? We're just so I think that neutral is also a very dangerous area to be in because it's just so easy, right?
Mm.
Um, it's easy to avoid thinking about tasks that you need to take on, that you need to tackle, maybe serious issues that are coming up. You want to ask your boss for a promotion, review time's coming up, maybe you're having an issue domestically and you need to kind of figure out how to resolve that dispute. Maybe finances aren't as where you want to be there, you know? And so instead of tackling these issues, we kind of avoid them and go into Facebook world or distractive world. Maybe people get obsessed with video games or YouTube, whatever it is. If you're watching us, obviously you're learning, so that's okay. Don't click away. Yeah, like we need to be aware when we are avoiding these issues. I read somewhere that you know the like our brain kind of has built into it like a novelty bias, right? So we look for what's new or what's easy, and we're now in a hypersensitive world. We're like kind of oversensitized, where we can kind of find the newest thing. Facebook, you got that feed. Uh, YouTube and quit Twitter, you can keep refreshing to see what's coming up. And we got they did studies, and I'll kind of post the link to the video that I saw of this guy talking about it, where the average person they studied workers and they studied their eyes and how much they were paying attention, and the average worker had about 30 to 40 seconds of focus, which is less than goldfish, right? So, and it takes about what 25 minutes or something like that to actually readjust and get in. So you're not like every time you switch a task, you're not just losing those 10, 20, 30 seconds, you're losing a lot more time than that, right? So we do need to kind of take stock of where we're at. You need to ask yourself how engaged you are in your current, what are you currently doing? How engaged you are in your work, how much percent of your waking time is spent actually doing what you should be doing and focused on it, and ways that we can kind of combat distractions. And I think we can make another video about distractions, but just quickly is to make a distraction list. And I think this is very useful, is write down what distracts you. But by far the best return on investment for getting focused is something you mentioned already, which is meditation, right? So you're growing your space, you're growing your awareness. So one of the key habits that you guys should start now, hopefully we sold you on journaling and gratitude. But if you've got that down pat, take some of that time, block it with the journaling. It would be a great time to do it so that you can reflect on your journal and your gratitude either right before you journal or right after you journal. As much time as you can spend. 5 minutes is better than zero. 25 minutes is ideal. Spend some time just meditating, focus on your breath. It's hard. It's going to be hard. But anything you do takes practice. When you were making the analogy of learning, Tony, at the beginning of this episode, and how we need how to learn how to learn. Really, that was a great analogy, and I think it fits in very well with learning how to drive this car that we're getting into, this vehicle. If anybody's ever learned how to drive a stick, right, and it's not easy, like you're trying to figure out the perfect balance, of letting off the clutch and putting the gas in, and you're going to stall out a lot, and it's very easy at that point to just think that something's wrong with you and you're never going to be able to get it, and it's just easier to go buy an automatic or something like that. But if you keep getting behind it, and if you're getting the positive encouragement from your peers, and you believe that, and you keep at it, you're going to start to get it. And you know what happens once you get it? You don't think about that anymore. It becomes consolidated, right? A lot of people who are great masters at what they do, like Michael Jordan of basketball, maybe we're showing our age or whatever, but they would make horrible teachers because they've consolidated all those important beginning steps so that it's automatic, and they've built such muscle memory around that they don't even think about how to do it. Their body does it automatically now. So to break down how to do it, would take some deconstruction. But that's kind of what we need at the beginning, is to be aware that it will get easier. I think another great example about to look towards when it comes to beginning something difficult and learning would be children, right? You look at, if you've had kids yourself, one of the most amazing and exciting moments is when they're learning how to walk, right? And they start to get up and they start to take a few steps and they fall down, and maybe they revert to crawling for a little bit, but they never give up, and and they never tell themselves, I can't do this, I'm not going to walk. And the parents, just as importantly, the parents are not saying, you suck, what's wrong with you can't walk, like
Told that three
they're not.
times.
Yeah, they're not getting, all they're getting is positive, like, wow, excitement anytime they do even attempt the slightest bit towards their goals. We need to nurture that in ourselves, because this is difficult. Our brains latch on to what's easy, not what's hard. But if we're trying to make any significant change, we need to work at it. It's not going to be easy, right?
No, it's not.
So, yeah, what are some ways that we can kind of start to, once, I think the first step we've established, if we haven't told you already, the first step is to be aware, right? Be aware of what habits are working against you, what negative thoughts are working against you. When you're in a distractive state, when you're in a positive state, take stock in that and how that feels, because that's going to be something good, because you can latch your brain onto that and say, I want to feel like this, right? So taking stock of your thoughts and in your state at any given moment throughout the day is going to be important. Whether you need to write it down or just reflect in a moment, pull yourself out of the situation. Like, I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling tense. Why? Or how can I head this off really quick? Or this is feeling really good. Like, I enjoy this. Let me take a little virtual snapshot so I can put it in my journal later about a positive thing that happened to me, or something I can be grateful for. Trying to be more aware of yourself, your being, when you're in that state, in the various states, is important. Um, but that itself is not really going to change us. It's going to help, but what can we do additionally to start to kind of maybe work towards where we want to be on our journey here, Tony?
So you mean basically cultivating, after you cultivate the awareness, what are some other kind of key aspects that you can start to use? Is that your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Like, being in a state, whether it's negative or positive or neutral or creative, those are powerful states, and they can either work for us or against us. Um, and our habits can kind of dictate our behaviors, which lead us to those states. They're not the only things. Interactions and self-narratives are important. Habits are difficult to change, but I think that our being aware, if we start to be aware of our self-narrative, then we can start to maybe hack that in a way that we can alter our state and therefore start to change our habits. Again, it's going to be like starting to learn how to drive a car or to walk. But if we keep at it, then we can start to consolidate that, and we can start to build new habits that work for us rather than against us,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, do you have any advice on to how to maybe redefine to kind of hack your self narrative in a way that works for you rather than against you?
Yeah, I mean that for sure. That is the most challenging part of the process. Is being able to rewrite that that self narrative because it's so ingrained in you, you know. Um,
Yeah.
but one of the things I think is that you need to as we touched upon in episode 5, is be reflective. You know, be self reflective.
Mm.
Um, you know, I don't want to say like hack yourself because it's just like I don't know. You kind of feel like
That's right.
cheating or hacking. You know, like I don't know if there's a way to actually go about that in a good sense, but I get what you're saying. Um, yeah, I think that having the knowledge that you know it's as intimidating as it feels, as you know, as high as you can get, as low as you can go. Like, I mean, it's there's a process to it, you know, and it's being
Yeah.
able to enjoy the process of it. You know, when you're up in a high,
Mm.
it's easy to say like, oh yeah, I'm never gonna go back down, but chances are something eventually is going to happen that knocks you down. You know, it's just
Yeah.
the way that life has been. So like enjoying like the ebbs and flows, so to speak, and you know, not allowing the down to keep you down and not allowing the up to keep you up. And then when I say not to keep you up, I say it's like basically when you get so big, like when you get so positive that it's almost like you feel like you're better than everybody. Like you're kind of letting the ego take over, and you're like, yeah, no, I'm no, everybody's below me. I'm so good now. You know, I've done what other people can't, or whatever. It's like keeping that mind and keeping that like disconnected is very important too, because that will for surely start to derail you on your path there. That's
Yeah.
not what it's meant for, as we discussed. But I think it's also very important to be aware that does happen if you get too high. Um, yeah, I think that the knowledge that it's basically that like pretty much the majority of us out there are kind of like, what is this all about? You know, what is life all about? What am I
Mm.
supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? How do I do it? What's the right way? Oh, that way doesn't work for me, so I don't care. It, like, guys, there's so much we don't know. Like, you know, every day we're learning more and more. So it's like really kind of, what were you gonna say, Joe?
Well, I was gonna say, so like, how do we keep that from turning into nihilism? Like and these feelings of existentialism, like what's it all for? Why should I even try if nobody knows the answer, right? I think that the greater good, coming up with the greater good helps, right? Knowing
Yeah,
that there is something bigger than us, and even if there isn't, it's worth working towards it rather than just sitting in this self-deprecative cesspool of like nothingness, right?
yeah,
Um, yeah. When you were talking about the combo analogy, I thought of one of the common myths that kind of derail people, and in the past has derailed me when trying to kind of ride the counter, so to speak, right? Like you kind of say, okay, I'm not going to be knocked down. I'm gonna punch back, and I'm gonna punch through, and I'm gonna I'm gonna force myself to make these positive changes, and I'm gonna go out exercising every day. I'm gonna meditate. I'm gonna sleep better. I'm not gonna drink or do whatever. I'm gonna be kinder to everybody. Like you're telling yourself these things that you're gonna do, and each of these kind of requires an amount of willpower. And I think that people believe that willpower alone can bring about a change in habits, and I don't think that that's how it works, right? I think that habits are kind of more insidious, and we need to be aware. Yeah, willpower can ride us so much, but then we'll get burned out, and those punches are going to still keep coming, right? So we can't fool ourselves. Willpower can help get some momentum, but we're not. We need to kind of make more permanent changes to our psyche, and that's why we're talking about the mind frame today. Because you could force yourself to think positive for so long until you get beat back down. You can't overexert yourself. If this is a game, this is a marathon, right? And you said like you can't, like at the beginning of the episode you said you can't look, oh, I'm so far away from my greater good, I'm not going to make it. I've run a marathon before. If you're looking like I'm at mile 2 and I still got 20 odd miles to run,
Yeah.
that's probably not the best mentality to have. You're gonna that can cause overwhelming to wipe you out. You just need to look at the next mile marker. And to get to the next mile marker, you need to look at the next, couple hundred feet. To look at the next couple hundred feet, you need to look at the next foot in front of you. You need to take it step by step,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then eventually, you just keep going, just step by step, step by step, step by step, like the turtle, man. You're not going to need to take a break. You're going to wake up and you're going to be crossing that finish line when all the other people that were trying to rabbit their way through have passed out and given up early, right?
Yeah.
So
Like David
I think
Goggins.
yeah, Goggins, that's right. How much you can look at how far you've been, or you can kind of look back and how much has led you to be where you are now. And it's like, say you're running a marathon, and you're at mile number 13. You're halfway done. You got 13 more miles to run or whatever. You're not halfway done. You're 90% done, because 85% of it you did leading up to that. All those training. Hopefully, you were training. I wouldn't run a marathon if you didn't train to run a marathon. Then you're not going to finish, right? That's your fault. But if you prepared yourself and you were out there every day, building yourself up for it, that's part of that marathon that you're running now. You got to think about that. You gotta be proud of what the work that you have put in, to get you
Mm-hmm.
where you are. And taking stock, journaling can help. Um, Getting like-minded people on your journey can be a great asset to that.
That's a
Find
big
somebody
one.
who's also trying to change and who can kind of give you that support and say, "Hey, look where you were a year ago, 2 years ago." Yeah, you might not be where you're at, but you've come a lot, right? And that alone, just hearing that from somebody can help you kind of reaffirm why you're on this journey, right? So I think that we do need to be aware that willpower alone is not going to help us. Uh, Habits are difficult. Habits are insidious, and our brains have kind of designed ourselves to take stock. And so our environment can be working against us in that situation. So maybe we need to see what cues are triggering certain behaviors, and how we can affect the cues or affect the behaviors that give us that reward, right? So if we need to change our environment, if you are uh, checking your phone, checking your Facebook, instead of getting work done, then you might need to either do your work in a different environment or leave your phone in a different place so that you don't have that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, or maybe you need to say, okay, I can check Facebook every time I get 20 minutes of dedicated work time in. I'll give myself a 5-minute break to check Facebook, so that you still get that reward. You're not denying yourself. I think, like, going back to the willpower thing, if we deny ourselves so much, like, I'm not going to drink, or I'm not going to check Facebook, or I'm not going to be like, that's kind of wearing us down, and eventually you're going to rubber band and slap back and slip down. So resistance is futile. We should realize that, and we should find a way to use that to our advantage, create it as a reward. Going back to the gamification, all right, I'm going to go into the level, and I'm going to knock out 20 minutes. This level is 20 minutes long. If I can endure 20 minutes, then I get the reward. I get to do whatever, decide that ahead of time, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've kind of started to go into a bunch of different topics before I keep going. You have anything to input so far?
I think you hit on a couple key ones there. Is that I think when you're making a change, uh, it's common to feel like you're alone on an island. You know, it's like, oh, no one's gonna understand this. You know, they're not gonna understand. Like, oh yeah, the greater good. Okay, yeah, go. Good luck with that one, buddy. And you're like, it's easy for you to feel like, you know, you're against the world, so to speak, or you're nobody's connected with it. So I think it is important to find a few people that do resonate with what you're saying. You know, do either are on the same mission or at least support what you know what you're trying to go for. You know, those are really going to be those helpful supporters and people that when you do feel like giving up are going to push you to that next level. That's really uh, something that can help along the journey there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that if you if you can't find anybody, because that can be an excuse, like, oh, I don't have anybody that I can contact. If you do have somebody, that's great, and use that, right, and let them use you for that too. But if you don't have anybody, then get involved in the comments below. Like start the conversation. We can be that for you. You know, we can help you keep accountable. You know, there's a lot of people who are experienced in the same journey, and sometimes you might not feel that. So we're also going to create a Facebook group. If we have it up, we'll put it in the link down, and that's going to be a great place for people that are going through this journey together to kind of share their experiences and get the support they need when they feel like they're failing. So yeah, join us. We can help you with that too.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm glad you mentioned that. Um, so yeah, that's you know, positive support is by far one of the number one um, aspects to really moving forward and really you know, helping maintain that growth and that correct mindset. Um, you mentioned distractions and eliminating distractions, and you couldn't be more right on that. And you know, it's so easy. Like it's almost every minute there's some type of distraction that can come up, whether a notification on your phone or you know the call or you know something pops up. Like every moment could be a distraction for you. So finding ways to eliminate those distractions and not feeling like, again, like you're at odds with it. Like I make a very conscious, like I don't I try to eliminate television as much as possible because television not only is it a distraction, it's a negative. You know, most of what you're seeing on I think we touched on this before is negative type of influence there. You know, like whatever's going on in the news or political. Like over the break, people kept mentioning you know things that were going on in the you know politics, and I was like, okay, that's great. You know, I don't follow that because I could one like look how angry you're getting about this, and it's like it has no direct, you know, it's not like that's like your family member or something. Like you're letting yourself be so influenced by what words are being spoken, you know. Um, so being able to type it to kind of eliminate those things that yeah, they're guilty pleasures and they feel good while you're doing it, and it gives you like kind of like you know passing conversation stuff like that, but it doesn't really help you in any way. You know, if anything, it pushes you uh, off the course there. So those are kind of like really to help with your mindset. One, find support as to that's really going to be positive, and then two, it's going to be like eliminate the distractions, the influences that kind of get you. Yes, as you mentioned, Joey, environment does bring about uh, good and bad, but being able to do your best to control what you can, like
Yeah.
it's not good that you should have a TV screen on in front of you by going to sleep. Like, if that's what your MO, like, get rid of that TV screen, like,
Yeah.
things that make these little positive changes that will help you and get you to being able to where it becomes more of that flow state as we were discussing, instead of like this feels like it's so hard to do, it's so forceful. It's like, well, once you make these little changes, they start to grow on each other. And like as we'll discuss in probably next episode, I think we'll touch on this, and we gotta wrap up shortly here. But these core habits start to stack, which make harder habits a little bit easier to approach. So, starting off
Yeah.
with some core habits to get your mindset right, to get your focus right, is going to be
Yeah.
very uh, crucial in being able to not be derailed when you feel like being derailed.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I think that yeah, we're definitely going to jump into to core habits, because those are things that once you kind of you got your mindset right, you know where you're going and where you want to be. Uh, you're going to want these. These are going to be the big things that you can be the cornerstones of building your journey, right? So we'll get into that. But yeah, environment can be a tricky one. But doing simple tricks like maybe instead of leaving bags of crisps and snacks and chips out on the table, you put those very hard to get to and put the easy snacks out, right? Like friction is something that's very important, and that's something in the environment. Make the things that you don't want difficult to do, and make the things that you do want as easy as possible to do. So if you have
Mm-hmm.
a break time, don't maybe hide the remote control. Tell somebody else to hide the remote control, and put books that you want to read out on the coffee table there, so that you're more tempted to grab those. These are just simple tricks. Another thing is, like, this is we can talk about down the line, but we did talk about kind of trying to prepare for obstacles and unforeseen obstacles. But maybe you do start to get your habits in order, and you start to get on top of that stuff. Be aware of unexpected environmental cues that might trigger old habits and kind of derail you as well. So, for example, I was doing very well with exercising and not drinking and kind of leading a healthy lifestyle. And I went to go do a run in a nearby city, and I brought my family, and that became kind of like a holiday environment for me. And my brain started to say, "Oh, you're on holiday. You can relax, you can have a drink, like, and stuff like that." And that kind of knocked me off, man. That really hit me. And I did say, okay, just this one time, I'm on holiday, I'll give myself a couple days. And the couple days into a week, and turned into a couple weeks, turned into a month, and kind of really knocked me off unexpectedly. So do be aware of how powerful habits can be and environmental cues can be. Our mind wants to gear us towards things, the guilty, the guilty pleasures. We're geared towards things that are pleasurable and away from things that are discomfortable. That's why discomfortable. That's why I wanted to do that with the greater good, is make your greater good as enviable as possible, and as amazing, and make that vision, and also make the opposite of that as undesirable as possible, so that you don't want to go back to that.
Mm-hmm.
But we are also unfortunately geared towards the immediate. So I think the immediate trumps anything like that. Like, so if I want to go exercise, I know that that's going to be pleasurable and rewarding, and I'm going to feel more energy and healthy. But getting to the gym and getting on the treadmill, or going outside and running, is painful, and that's immediate. And I'm going to try to avoid that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think the opposite works as well. Like, I want to stop drinking, because the hangover is going to be painful and horrible, but right now it feels good, and it's possible, and having that dopamine, so I indulge in that. So we need to be aware that immediate trumps long term. Um, the last thing I want to say before we wrap up, Tony, is that I've been trying a couple things with trying to hack my mentality. And when I mentioned before about growth habits, which are kind of the core habits that we want to talk about that will help you start to grow and compound habits later on, the more difficult habits. I also mentioned maintenance habits, like things like shaving, taking care of your appearance, and taking stock in where you're at. But I think that we also need to be aware of where our standards are, right? And so if we don't, we might know that we need to be a certain way and act a certain way, but if we don't believe that that's who we are, if that's not who then we're not gonna do it. If I don't, it's like I might know that I need to shower every day and shave, but if I'm not in the right mental state, if I'm not holding myself up to that standard, I'm not going to do it, how much ever I know I need to do it. So something that I've been trying to do is redefine who I am by telling myself things that I want to incorporate in my life. For example, I start to think of, like, I am a person who takes care of themselves and looks after their physical appearance. Or I want to be a better father. So I start to tell myself, I am a person who uh, is blessed to have amazing children, and I'm a person who is present in their lives. Or I want to start to do the dishes and take out the trash more often to help out around the house. So I say, I'm a person who is responsible and values cleanliness and helping out in the house. So I think that, like, just by doing that, that's something that I can say I think it works very well, is redefining yourself, and you're start to that's what I meant, kind of, I was trying to allude towards, like, I think that if there is a hack that can be a helpful hack, is redefining who you are in your brain so that you have new standards for yourself, and it's easy to go back. So I think that if you keep doing it and you start to live according to how you see yourself in the world and what standards you have for yourself. So that's something that you can start to maybe start to be aware of. That's why awareness comes first. You need to be aware of where you're at and where you want to move towards. And if you're not where you're at, you can reframe that by telling yourself that you are something, and then you start to embody that and act like that. A last example I can give to you, and before I'll throw it back to you, and then we can wrap it up, is like, I'm not a morning person at all. You called it, Tony. I'm a wolf, right? But I know that if I join the 5 a.m. club, that would revolutionize my life, and that I can be a lot better. Forcing myself up to do something, trying to do a cold shower, that's painful, right? But I also noticed that my children are starting to take on these behaviors too. I try to wake them up for school, and they're crying and dragging their feet and slugging their shoulders and throwing up a fight, and it's a battle, right? So I've started to tell myself that I'm excited to be awake. I'm excited to start this day because I have things that I want to do with my life that are gonna be very exciting, and that gets me in a state, an energized state in the morning. I don't need coffee. I don't need anything, right? And I've started to try to help my kids with that too. Like, oh, Hunter, you have swimming at school today. Isn't that exciting? Come on, we're gonna swim. Like, this is gonna be really great. Are you excited about swimming? Or Kieran, today you have a Children's Day project at your school. You're gonna make those hats. Let's go. Let's get up. And then I can notice that they see my excitement, and they started to get excitement. They move faster. They get in that shower. They start complaining. They're down getting, like, they're telling me to get out of the house, right? So I think that not only can we hack our thoughts, but we can hack our state as well by telling ourselves to be excited about something. So that's me. I know I went on a little rant, but I wanted to give our viewers something that I've been trying that works for me, and it's something that I would encourage them to try as well and see how it works for them. And also to, if it does, like, let me know. Let us know. Comment below. Like, did you try it? Are you able to hack your brain? What experiences do you see? Do you notice any change? Are you able to hack your state by telling yourself that you're going to be happy or you're going to be excited? How does that work for you? Let us know in the comments below. And Tony, I mean, any last thoughts?
Yeah, and that is it's you're catching yourself and you're rewriting the narrative, which is great, which is awesome. You're framing the you're putting into a frame of the person you want to be. The person that's gonna you need to create in order to go to the greater good. And to be on that path. Um, and one thing I was thinking while you were saying it's just like I think I think people have like a negative connotation about like an alter ego or like oh he's like egotistical or whatever that is. Like I think creating an alter ego can be very powerful. It's like someone who's like
Slim
it's like
Shady.
yeah, like that Slim Shady, yeah, right. He'll tell you that that allowed him to key into his success. Um, but yeah, like having it like when the tough gets going, like I turn into Superman, like or whatever you're write it maybe like write it out for yourself. Like if I could have an alter ego, what would my alter ego look like, and write that like what the Hulk turns green and gets big, like like he's ready to take on that challenge. But I think that there's something to creating an alter ego that you can tap into when needed. That can be
That's
really
awesome.
helpful. Yeah, like I'm super dad. I'm super dad. I can fly higher than anybody. Whatever that looks like. But yeah, man, good kudos on reframing and being aware and looking at uh, the person you were and the person you want to be. That's awesome, man. So it's starting to click. Again, like Joe said, try it out. Comment. We'd love to hear that. Um, we'll be talking
Yeah.
about core habits next time.
I'm gonna make an alter ego. That's gonna be my homework. I love that idea, man. I'm super Joe. I like because you can't take on the world and you can't always be on. So hacking your brain's not always gonna work, but you got to be accepting that. But yeah, when the going gets rough, man, if you can tap into like, okay, yeah, I got this energy, I got this superhero. Yeah, awesome. But next time is core habits, right? We're gonna
Yeah,
jump into that
that's it.
and.
Cool. So yeah, so I'll definitely I'll write that out. An alter ego. I like that idea. And then we'll jump into guys. Maybe try that out yourselves. That's your homework. Write an alternative narrative for yourself there, and we'll be on talking about core habits next time and the ways to things that you can use as fundamental stuff, and then start to use those to grow into bigger and better and greater things. So until next time, friends, same black hair, same two twins. Thank you for coming. Your host for the evening, Tony and Joe. Good night. Love you, man.
Peace, bro. Love you, man. Nice.